Find the derivative of y equals the square root of x plus 2 over the square root of x, then evaluate y prime of 4. Y is made up of the quotient of two functions, the square root of x plus 2 over the square root of x. One option is the quotient rule, but if you can physically take the quotient, the derivative will be simpler. And we can do that as long as the denominator has a single term. It's not added or subtracted with anything else. And it has that. The first thing I'm going to do is take each of these square root of x to the first power and write them as x to the first power, and square root means over 2. Fractional exponents, x to the 1/2 plus 2. Down here, x to the first power and square root, x to the 1/2. We can now break up each of the numerator terms over that common denominator, so x to the 1/2 over x to the 1/2 plus 2 over the x to the 1/2. The first term, the x to the 1/2, can cancel, and that'll leave us a 1. So y can be written as 1 plus, and then that second term, that x to the 1/2 in the denominator, can be moved to the numerator, so we can do a power rule by writing it as a negative exponent. So 2x to the negative 1/2. We can now take the derivative, y prime, or dy dx. The first term is a constant with no x's. The derivative will be a 0. The second term will follow a power rule, so let's bring the power down, negative 1/2. It'll multiply the 2 that's already there. And then x to the negative 1/2 minus 1, or minus 2 over 2. The next step is to multiply these fractions. You can think of that as 2 over 1 if you'd like. We multiply the numerators and the denominators. That will give us a 2 over a 2. 2 times 1 is 2, and 1 times 2 is 2. With a negative, 2 over 2 is a 1, so negative 1, or just negative x raised to the minus 1 minus 2 is minus 3, common denominator of 2. Negative x to the negative 3/2. Since it's a negative exponent, it can move to the denominator and be called a positive exponent. That'll leave a 1 in the numerator, and overall the fraction's negative from the minus. There's our derivative. The next thing we can do is evaluate this at 4. Y prime of 4, which is going to be negative 1 over 4 to the 3/2. Now, the 3/2 power means a cube and a square root, and you can go in either order. I'm going to take the square root first because the square root of 4 is just a 2. And then we'll do the 3 power next. So negative 1 over 2 times 2, which is 4, times 1 more 2 is an 8. Negative 1 over 8.